prophecies, revelations, economic collapse, martial law, social and civil war, aliens, human hybrids, Nephilim, the Great Deception, world chaos, tsunamis. You want to stay tuned for special edition End Time Revelations with Pastor Henry Schaefer and Pastor Steve Hall.
Well, hello and welcome, CSRA. Welcome to another episode of Project Seer. Hey, I'm your host, Henry Schaefer. We are live in the studio, and it is live in the studio because it is Thursday. It is June the 28th. It is just a little bit after the top of the hour, 2 o'clock, and I'm here live and also got someone riding shotgun with me today.
Amen. It's me, Bill George. Amen. It's good to be with you, Pastor.
All right. We're going to have a good one today. We got a lot to talk about, got a lot of things that we want to share with everybody. So while you kind of like just bring us into all this stuff here, brother, I'm going to get us on Facebook, going to get us there live going on here in just a moment. So I'm just going to stop here just real quick and let me get started on that, and you take it from here. Okie
doke. Well, we're looking forward to today's show. A lot have been going on with the elections that had just taken place, and one major upset for one of the Democrats was that a socialist candidate got voted on to be put in the office. So that's going to change up, it got voted to be in the primaries, I should say. That'll change up the election in November. And then also one of the big things that we're going to talk about today is the Supreme Court justice that is retiring and who may replace him. And mainly we're going to deal about with the things that are taking place that look so great for Christianity and stuff, but lawlessness may come to the land, and we're going to be talking about the case of lawlessness that takes place.
Yeah, living in the land of lawlessness is the title of the program today that we're going to talk about, and go from there with it. It's going to be a good show, though. Everybody's going to, hopefully they're going to like it, because we just got a few things we want to share, and maybe even reprimand different folks. No, I'm just kidding. We were doing that a while ago when we were in the green room talking. Amen. And said, hey, supporting certain parties or supporting certain things, being a Christian, how does it line up with your own worldview of being Christians? And those are the things that I think people have to be aware of what's taking place now. All right, brother, we are live, and we are posted on WCC 99.9 FM. You are on that Facebook page there. Make sure you take it as public. Share it with all your friends.
Amen.
And let them know that that we are living in the land of lawlessness. And the scriptures even give us some good insight on those things that are coming in the last days. And I truly believe that we are in the last days, and troubled times will come. I believe that God has put a doorstop in the door closing on the end time, as far as starting us into a time of Jacob's troubles, or the time of tribulation. And so we have a lot that's going on in our land. And our land is truly divided. I mean, when I talk about that, I guess what you can say is that at the beginning of our country, we conquered our fathers. Mm-hmm. And when we separated from our fathers, when we started our country,
right,
from England. And then we conquered in the 1880s our brothers.
Right.
It was a division in our country. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Right.
And that spirit still has not left the USA.
Right.
I mean, it's still a division, blue and red, or we're listening. What kind of sound was that coming in this place? I don't know if they could hear that or not, but black and white,
right,
in America, blue and gray, north and south. I mean, those kind of things still exist here in America. Division of racial barriers and boundaries and different things like that. I mean, that's a spirit that's prevalent within America. And I go back and I look all the way back to the blood moons that came back, a year or so ago, when the blood moons came through. I mean, it drew a line. Mm-hmm. it drew a line from Washington State all the way down to South Carolina, right across our country, and a division between the North and the South.
Right.
A dividing line. It's like it's totally divided. Churches are divided. I mean, isn't it amazing how the churches are set up? They're set up with a set of group of pews on one side, and a group of pews on the other side, or chairs, what have you. And there's on one center aisle. You either sit on this side or you sit on this. You see what I'm talking about? A lot of them are like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And you also mentioned before about Israel. If someone allows it to be separated, that America could be separated down the same line.
Divided, yeah.
I knew we were in trouble a couple weeks ago when, Memorial Day, when President Trump went out and he placed a wreath upon the unknown soldier's tomb, as every president has done before him. And I sat and watched that, and they had the comments on Facebook and stuff coming up, and there was like 270 something people that were mad that he was placing the wreath upon the tomb. And I thought to myself, the poor man can't even do what every other president has
done without getting.
And somebody's got to be mad at him.
Well, it's when you look at what's taking place in America. When you look at the place in America, you start seeing that how this division is taking place, and I think it's really becoming prominent now, even with this president that we have. I mean, there is a left and right in our country. I mean, it's left-right thinking. You moving to the left. Now, we have to identify this for some people, because a lot of people don't realize that when you talk about left and right, we're not talking about right and wrong. Right. We're talking about left is a leftist type thinking, which is a very liberal thinking, in politics. The right is a conservative type view, and conservative values are things like family, things like traditional marriage. That would be who was in politics and they lean right would support the family, traditional families now, y'all,
right,
and a marriage. They would lean towards not supporting outright abortion in the 9th month. They would say no. There are some restrictions that need to be made, right, in that. So everything is kind of like right is almost like, what does the Bible have to say about some things, in the guidelines that are there. The liberal to the left side, they recognize that there's a Bible, but there's a lot of Bibles. Now, there's a lot of ways to live. But the thing is, you let everybody choose what way they want to live, and you choose it from whatever's right in your own eyes.
That's right.
Is that what you can do? And it's almost like it was in the time of the judges in the Bible. So you have a left-right thinking, and of course someone says, well, I don't want to be left-right, I want to be in the middle. Well, those would be almost like the libertarians that would be in the middle. So right. I'm talking about, that'd be more like liberals. They're not conservatives and they're not leftists, but they're almost like liberals, and they're in the middle. And then of course you got all this other stuff coming up as well.
I kind of like the constitutionalists who want to stick strictly to the Constitution, what the Constitution says about, the right to bear arms, freedom of speech, and things like that. But it's kind of funny, the left will say that they're about freedom, but they're about freedom as long as the freedom is lined up to what they want. But they really, in actuality, they want to take, they want more government. They want to take
large government,
your freedom of you to bear arms. They want to take that freedom to say the things that you want to say. You can only say what you want to say if you're liberal.
Really, they believe in freedom of speech as long as it goes along with what they want to say.
Right, exactly.
But to be able to counter that and be able to say, I'm conservative and I have Christian values. I'm not talking about I'm just saying I'm a Christian, but I have Christian values, and I'm going to speak those things. Well, then they want to shut that conversation down. Especially on campuses and everything. So we're saying all of that to say this here. That type of spirit is in our country.
Right.
It's in our politics. And the thing is and it's in people. It depends on what are your values. What's your worldview? What's your Christian worldview? What is your world? You can say you're a Christian, but what is your worldview? Well, I don't think my Christianity should be in anything in politics. Well, now here's what I'm going to tell you this here. If you believe that, and doesn't think that Christianity or anything shouldn't have to do with the politics that govern the country, well, then that's the reason why our country is going down the tubes like it has been going down. That makes sense, because when you take God out of the schools and you take him out of the school system, it creates what is called a vacuum. And that vacuum gets filled with other things. And you get filled with other things like, well, you can't talk about Christianity, but the Muslim Brotherhood or the Muslims and the Islamic religion is now propagated within the school system.
Right.
Because you took Christianity out. Now let's learn about Muslims. Let's learn about those kind of things. And they're moving right on in. So when you take God out, it's a vacuum, and something is going to fill it. And Christianity is a religion, okay, or a way of belief. So when you pull that out, there will be something like it replace it.
Right.
Okay. If it's not the Islamic faith that replaces it, and you say, well, I just want it to be just secular. Well, it's a secular religion then, where you have no God and everybody you see, it's still a religion that's going to fill that spot.
Right.
Did that make sense? It's just not going to be filled with hot air, but it's something of a belief system will fill that belief system that you take out.
Exactly. And it's, unfortunately, it's going to always be at odds with each other, because good and evil are at odds with each other. And, the Bible tells us that our righteousness is as filthy rags. When you think about it, the things that we think are such a great idea, when you follow it out, you find out it's not nearly as good of an idea as you thought it was. I think about the election, or leading up to the election, how Bernie Sanders was out there and everybody was saying, well, this is something new. He's teaching something new. He really wasn't teaching anything new. He was teaching something old. And now we have an elected official for a primary, a nominated official for a primary, that is completely socialist, and who says we need to do away with the Customs Department and immigration. In other words, we need to have no borders, need to have no walls, not even check people that are coming in and out of our country, not have a way to check the customs, the things that come from other countries into our country. I'm a socialist, and I'm going to stand up on that platform and say I'm a socialist. And unfortunately, a lot of young people are buying into it because they're not looking at the whole thing. If you have nobody to protect the borders, no one to check the customs, anything comes into your country. And so when the Bible talks about righteousness being as filthy rags, that's basically what it's talking about, is that people don't follow it all the way out until the end. Where the Bible is written from beginning to end, tells us what's going to happen, tells us the different, aspects of the decisions that we make, and so we have something that we have a guideline that we can follow, and the country would love to get rid of that guideline. And one of the things that we're talking about today is the Supreme Court justice that's going to be up for grabs. As Christians, we can say, wow, we get conservative in there, we get the things that we want, we can abolish abortion. It was kind of ironic, I think, I don't know if you saw it, Pastor, but one of the first things that Schumer said was they better not nominate a Supreme Court justice nominee that is against Roe versus Wade.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing on his mind. Isn't that amazing that the first thing on his mind would be abortion?
Yeah. And here's what I want people to look at when they're saying that, as far as the abortion issue and things like that, is that we believe, or I believe this here, is that there is a demonic influence and a godly influence within our country, and it's a struggle over the country.
Right.
That makes sense. So if you believe, so depends on who you put in to the offices, based off what they believe, is going to be a direction in which we're going to move in the country. You can swing. You're either going to swing left or you're going to swing right. When you swing left, you light the White House up with rainbow colors. When you swing to the right, then you put Christ back in the Christmas.
Right.
And you swing left, you swing right. You tell me. And and there's a thing that is designed to do that. There's a thought and a conditioning process to where what they try to do is they actually do try to make it so that you swing too far left in government, and there's nothing as far as a Christianity in it at all, or any government. And then all of a sudden, when the country sees that it's going too far to the left, all of a sudden they get someone in here that's really going to pull it to the right. You know what I mean? And then it gets too much of God in stuff. And then, of course, now they start to pull it back to the center, and they pull it back. So it's a swing back and forth by design.
Right.
To do different things like this, to get us into the mindset of saying, no, we don't want to have no government involved in any of those things. You know what I mean? We just want to be able to decide ourselves what we want to do, and kind of like be like really strictly constitutionalist, right in the very middle, and not have God in one way, or be able to have it too far to the left to where, you know, you're just going off the the world when you go that way. But this Supreme Court judge that's coming up, the opening that's coming up, is when we look at this here, that there are currently nine Supreme Court justices. Now, you realize there's a lot of people who doesn't know a lot of things about the Supreme Court or the justices that are there. So there are actually 9 of them right now.
Right.
And the last one that was appointed was Neil Gorsuch, Gorsuch, and he's at the age 50. That's so I think he's the youngest one that's on there. They range from the age. Is it Ruth? Yeah, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She is at the age of 85, and she's been on the Supreme Court since 1993. So she's 85 years old. So they range from the oldest of being 85 all the way down to the age of 80. Now, 50. So when these people serve, they're going to serve.
Right. So he's got another 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, 30 years.
If the Lord don't come.
And the thing is, he has a job that, unless he wants to step down himself, that there's no political pressure. See, that's the way it's supposed to be. No political pressure. But you're supposed to interpret the Constitution and not make laws. Right. You know what I mean? Like has been made in the past. Right. It's like, and when I can't, and the one that I can't get over is where they passed the tax, said that the Obamacare was a tax. It was a tax, and it was not a demand for you to have health care, but they charged it as a tax. And then they said the government could cause you to place taxes on people. They weren't necessarily saying you were going to buy a product. See, they could say, you got to buy this product. This is the product you got to have. Right. Well, nobody can do that. Right. But when they said, but it's not that, we're going to call it a tax. And when they called it a tax, then everybody's got to have it. Right. Does that make sense? And that was a Supreme Court justice. Was it Roberts? I think it was John Roberts that made that decision. And it was a very big one. I can't believe he made that decision. Right. Well, all these decisions, that decision made it so you had to buy Obamacare. That one decision. And there's been decisions that's been made on here as far as Roe versus Wade about having legalizing abortion and killing some 50 to 60 million babies. And I'm not saying that there can be instances where some things like that need to happen. But I'm trying to say wholesale 9th month, partial birth abortion, because that's where this was going until Donald Trump got in. That so there's a lot of these men and women who are being picked to go on here will swing the pendulum in our country left or right. And what it does is that spiritually the enemy, the devil, the fallen angels that's over this property, over this country, like there was over Daniel's time in the Persia, there's fallen angels, and they have a cohort of the existence of demons and that are at work to bring about the end time and destruction of lives. That's what, and they hear that there's a possibility that we're not going to be able to kill all these babies no more. You mean there's a possibility that we're not going to kill them? Or there's a possibility that they're actually going to be able to put walls up to stop all this stuff from coming across the border, and drugs and all this stuff, and we can't come in with MS-13, and we're not going to be able to rape, rob, and pillage. You see, it's in the spiritual realm is what's being upset. Right. You see what I mean? They're the ones that are saying this. The people are saying it, but there's something behind them making them say it. Right. And it's called demons.
Right, exactly, yeah. I mean, a Christian basically has hope, whereas demonic beings have no hope. So where, as a Christian, right or wrong, might, when Roe versus Wade comes in there, Christians might say, well, hopefully we'll get it out the next time. Hopefully we'll get a Supreme Court justice. They're willing to kind of wait and hope and pray. When the other side comes in and they have no hope, they say, well, we'll take it by force. So on the up hand, we're looking at a Supreme Court justice that may come in and say, I'm willing to step out and be against abortion, but what is the other side going to do? We're talking about living in a time of lawlessness. They're going to be desperate. What happens when people become desperate?
Well, and here's the thing. Why are we doing the show called Project Seer Special Edition End Time Revelation? Is because what do we see coming? What's coming to America? If, listen, this is, there's nothing new under the sun. All you have to do is look back at the past to see what has happened in the past. When you see the things that's happened in the past, surely y'all do not think that it can't happen again.
That's right.
That's why you look. That's why you learn from history, and that's why I started it off with the things of that. You left your father's country. Now we conquered each other in 1880s, the Civil War, and many are calling for a split. They're talking about having California divide up into 4 countries. 4 states. And here's my report to that. Yeah, we're going to divide up California to 4 states. Divide them up north, south, and the different portions that they have there. And of course, that would change the way the senators and the representatives was made up in the thing. So they would lean everything pretty much predominantly to the left. But then I said, well, let's just divide up Texas, because Texas is a conservative state. We'll divide up California, we'll divide up Texas, and we'll make it still even again. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. I like, I believe something you said before about they need to put a wall up, and it needs to cut off the California part.
Yeah, they're putting a wall up. They're putting a wall up on the wrong place. Yeah,
but because California has been so liberal, I'm sure there's some great people in California and some great Republican people in California, but they tend to be so liberal that even their own people are saying, we're done with this. Everything that you do is against us, as far as California governors and stuff wanting to make certain taxes and having to do this and do that. The people of California are starting to say, I'm tired of this stuff. And, we're getting ready to face a time that I think that although, like you say, Pastor, history kind of repeats itself. There's no new things under the sun. But to us as a people, I think we're going to be thinking, this is something I've never seen before.
Yeah, so let's talk about some things that are in the scriptures about lawlessness. It's in Matthew 13:41. It says, the Son of Man will send forth his angels, talking about at the last, to reap the harvest. He said, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all stumbling blocks. Now, it's going to be out of where? Out of his kingdom.
Out of his kingdom.
Out of his kingdom. All stumbling blocks. And those who commit lawlessness. Lawlessness. So 2 Corinthians 6:14, this is a warning to believers in Corinth there. He says, do not be bound together with unbelievers. Now, the unbelievers, we're talking about people who don't believe in God,
right?
Doesn't believe in Jesus, doesn't believe in all these things. So they need to be very careful at who they yoke themselves with. For what partnership have righteousness and lawlessness? And or what fellowship hath light to do with darkness? And so that's what you see when there's a division in God's kingdom between light and darkness, between right and wrong, between lawlessness and righteousness. Everything is divided along those barriers. So when you're getting involved in things and you're starting to look at things, you need to look at what's going on as far as being involved on the right side of issues. So what is the right side of the issues when you talk about abortions? Is the right side of the issue saying, okay, we're going to allow anybody, anyway, anytime, anywhere to have an abortion anytime they want? Or that's the left. Or are you going to say to the right side and say, we believe in the sanctity of life.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that, listen here, they have a lot of people who need babies and want babies. Do you know what I mean? And there's a lot of people who would take care of babies. And I'm going to go ahead and say this one thing. Do you know why we're having to import all these people from all these other countries to come in here and to do work and do all these things? One reason is all the baby boomers are retiring.
That's right.
And that because we have killed 60 million babies and all our offspring, we have nobody to take the jobs to work that we need to have done.
That's right.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
That's
and we
right.
have nobody to support us in our Social Security. I'm telling you, you're really gonna complain when the Social Security stops, and you're gonna say, "But I thought the government, when we should have been doing this, and they should have been preparing for us." And here's the thing: is that they will do their part, but you have to do your part. Your part is to do this here, is to have offspring, so that they can tax them, so that they can support you when you get old.
Right.
But you cut your nose off, spite your face, because you wanted to live a liberal lifestyle.
Right.
Do you know what I'm talking about? And that's exactly what's wrong in Germany right now. In Germany, am I doing all right?
Doing wonderful.
And that's what's wrong in Germany right now. Like Angela Merkel, the lady that's this lady that's over Germany and all, and why they're letting so many people come into all of these countries, coming out for all these Muslim people coming in, is because they know that their population is getting old. And they have nobody to do the jobs or anything that's below them or that's there. And like Angela Merkel and many of the people who are on that committee of the European Union that are the heads, they have no children. They have elected to have a lifestyle that we are free of any bonds to raise any children in any way. Therefore, they have to open the doors up. I know this sounds crazy to y'all.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, you look at China. China only allowed you to have 2 children. And so most of the people there preferred to have male children because that would be a blessing. And now they don't have enough females to go around to all the males. So, I mean, it just makes common sense. It reminds me of the fish that they imported into Oshkosh, Wisconsin. When they imported the fish in because they needed it, they didn't realize that there was a fly that attached itself to the fish that the fish ate. And now they have a problem with the lake flies twice a year that they come in the millions. Because they didn't see beyond the surface of what's going on.
Yeah.
And we're terrible about that. But we probably also should mention, while we're talking, that we have a new guest in there.
Yeah, we got JFK. He just popped in with us. JFK, good to have you.
Yeah, I was determined.
Yeah, we're glad. I mean, we knew that you were coming. We held the door open for you.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is, you have to make a choice. You can, complaining about not having a whole loaf of bread.
Yeah.
But if I'm really hungry, and you offer me half a loaf, I'm not going to turn down that half a loaf.
That's right.
I always want a whole loaf of bread when you go in there and they say, well, we're having to split up because we're getting low. I'm going to take that half a loaf. I'm not going to turn it down.
Well, we're glad you come and shared a half a loaf of bread with us.
Yeah, we got to have 30 minutes into the show, and now I'm going to want to get...
But you've been hearing what we've been talking about.
Yeah, I've been listening and everything.
We blowing it out coming this way?
Yeah.
Did you hear
it would sound loud and clear. I don't know whether it was the weather or not, but I didn't have any kind of interference or anything the whole time, so I was able to listen to everything y'all was saying.
Good. So those who were tuning in, we're right at the bottom of the hour now. You are in a live broadcast of Project Seer. We're talking about living in the land of lawlessness, and we're talking about the Supreme Court justices that is getting ready to retire, and that is Anthony Kennedy. He is that right here, Anthony Kennedy?
Yeah,
that's the one, Anthony Kennedy, and he is getting ready to retire. He's 81 years old. And, boy, he sure don't look 81, does he?
No, and I think it was kind of a shock the way that they're acting.
Yeah,
that they didn't realize he was going to do that.
Because, a lot of them, there's been a lot of prophecies about a turnover in the Supreme Court. And somebody thinking about someone dying or what have you. And who was that, the last one? It was Scalia?
Yeah.
The one that passed away?
Passed away while he was in office. And,
well, when we say he passed away, they say he passed away. But
one way or another, he's dead.
One way or another, he's not on the Supreme Court no more. And I don't know how old he was, but he leaned to the right, and they were concerned about the way he was going to vote on a lot of things. And when he went out to his ranch out in, I don't know, Wyoming somewhere or wherever he was at,
in good health,
and
he probably wasn't by himself, is what you're saying.
Exactly. And he was like, I know he was out there hunting somebody say hunting and doing different things, and in good shape. And the next thing you know, he's not alive anymore. He's taken out. He's just one more body along the side of the political arena. I could go a little. I don't want to get branded here or anything.
Right.
Just one more political pawn. And we're not talking about a pawn. When I say a political pawn, I guess we could almost say something like a bishop. Because he's greater than a pawn. He's just a little old thing. But he was a pretty big piece on the playboard, and he just got sacrificed. And now, of course, because of maybe the way he was getting ready to vote on some things, and that's what it was, the way he's getting ready to vote on some things, so they just kind of I believe they took him out. And then that opened the door up. They're thinking that Hillary Clinton's going to be able to go in, and next one's going to go in and appoint someone, but all of a sudden Donald Trump comes on the scene and he appoints Neil Gorsuch, which is a right-leaning Supreme Court justice. Now we have Anthony Kennedy at the age of 81. He's leaving, saying he's going to retire. And now you have all these people, ABC, NBC, CBS, you have all of the Clinton News Network, all of them that's associated anything with the Democratic Party are saying that we have to do everything we got to do to stop Donald Trump from appointing another Supreme Court, a conservative Supreme Court
and
justice.
I mean, and as you pointed out, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is 85 years old. Chances that she's going to be on there very much longer.
Now she's liberal. She's leaning. She leans left.
So if she retires,
that's got three up. That's the three of them he gets to appoint.
And then Trump has another option to put in there.
This group will make decisions that will steer our country left, right. I'm not talking about to the left, to the right. I'm talking about homosexual marriages. They will make decisions in the future, and it will be based off of conservative values or very liberal values. And they will look it through the lenses of left, right, Supreme Court. That's how they're going to do this. So what it does to the people, now we're talking about to the demons, or now we talk about to the people who are hearing all this, and they are saying, hey, we're going to, it's a fear tactics that are out there. But and there's probably a lot of truth in it too. We're going to lose. Roe versus Wade is going to be overturned. Well, they're definitely going to try to do that. This might be pretty good call here. Y'all want to take this here?
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, caller, you're live and on the air at WCC 99.9 FM. You got a comment? Got a question?
Got a comment?
Who is this?
God bless you, Pastor Schaefer. Pastor George.
I don't recognize the voice.
I tell you, you're hitting on it today. You're talking about the justices. I heard you made a comment about, Pastor, that there are a lot of prophetic words about what the Lord has said he's going to do with the Supreme Court. And I think the prophet you're talking about is Mark Taylor, and he has stood by what the Lord told him, and this is what it was. He's going to remove 5 justices. One will die prematurely. That was Justice Scalia when he went to that hunting ranch. Okay? Then he said 1 would retire, and then 3 would resign in shame, in a scandal. Now, that's the prophecy, and Mark Taylor has stood beside it, and he will say, just like they did in the Bible, if it does not fall, let's get the stones out. But he still stands by it. And the whole purpose that he said the Lord has given him is to reconfigure the Supreme Court so he can destroy Roe versus Wade and the law that was made by the Supreme Court, and they don't have a right to make a law. They can only discuss whether or not and make the decision whether or not it's constitutional. Now, that's the prophetic word on the Supreme Court. And the other comment I want to make is the Lord said that told Mark Taylor that he was going to go after it on towns, cities, states, local level, small town level. And just this past week in West Virginia, one of the Supreme Court justices was indicted for fraud and corruption. He's facing 359 years in prison, and he's been removed from the bench. And that is a Supreme Court justice in the state of West Virginia.
Wow. Don't mess with them people in West Virginia. That's all I can say.
That's right. My parents are from West Virginia, so I know all about that.
They've been naughty in West Virginia, hadn't they?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it Tony Myers?
I think he might be Virginia.
Virginia?
I think.
But anyway, I just wanted to toss that in. The Lord is not finished. You know, everybody thinks it's Trump, and they don't realize that
He's just a pawn. He ain't a pawn. He's like a king or a queen on the chessboard, because God's put him on there. And but he let me tell you this here. There's a difference between a king and a queen. Of course, we know that, right, y'all? But on a chessboard, a queen can move in any direction, any way, and as far as he wants. But a king can move in any direction, but only one step at a time.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Now,
so there are that much differences in them. So where is he at? I mean, I believe that he's making that he's doing step by step as the Lord shows him what he needs to do. He's not out there like a queen just going at just doing anything they want to do in any way.
Right.
He's doing it step by step, very methodically. That Trump is doing what he needs to do. And when he's got to put another Supreme Court justice in, it will be the right one chosen the right way, and he will not let the political pressure influencing him. Does he need to put someone in the middle there or to the left there? But he will put in who I think God would lead him to do. That's what I think.
And there's one other decision that came down at the end of last week, and it has to do with Obama-appointed judges in some of the lower courts. And they couldn't be removed. Well, now the Supreme Court has ruled that they can be, and Trump is going to replace them with his own appointees. So all of these entrenched and planted Obamaites that were left behind to thwart his administration, they're now going to be legally removed because the Supreme Court has said yes. They can't just... They were sitting there and doing what they wanted with no accountability to the administration or to any branch of government. And so now the Supreme Court has ruled on that. And so there are judges in circuit courts and appeals courts that were appointed by Obama that think they're there for life, and they're not. They will be replaced by appointees of President Trump. And Mark Taylor says one other thing, and I'll let you go. You know, Saul in the scriptures was God's anointed. And even King David never touched Saul.
That's
and
right.
Mark Taylor points out that, like you did, Pastor Schaefer, that President Trump, the Lord has his hand on him. He will do what his purposes are. But you do not touch God's anointed. That means you don't touch him with your mouth. You don't touch him physically. You don't touch him at all. He's his anointed, and he's doing God's purpose. And Mark Taylor made a point in the last comments I heard that he made. All of this rhetoric and uncivility and calling for horrific actions against his son and the first family, that qualifies as you don't touch God's anointed, and that the Lord's going to deal with that. So, on that note, I'll go back to listening. God bless you. I'm enjoying the show.
All right. Thank you,
Amen.
Sister Sandy. It's so good to have you back on the show with us. God bless you.
God bless you, Pastor.
Bye. All right. Somebody want to call in right in the middle of it. Got a comment, got a question. Want you to call on in. It's your time. It's about 2:44. Y'all, we got about another 15, 20 minutes before we get out of this place. So what are your thoughts, JFK, on what's taking place? There's lawlessness in the land. You know, they're calling for public. They're already right now trying to take Trump off the ballot in 20-something states in 2018, 2020, when he does the election again. Is that when it goes in? Yeah, trying to make so that he's not even on the ballot. Going, man, he's the incumbent. It sounds like he's got to be on there. But they're trying to remove him, or they're trying to call out before appointing somebody as the Supreme Court justice. They're talking about rioting. They're talking about laying down in the streets before the Supreme Court and find out where Trump is. Find out everybody who was in Trump's administration everybody, is to publicly humiliate them, even if they go out to eat in places and everything, is actually to run them out of their places where they're eating in traffic. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going. We're talking about living in the land of lawlessness. Is that these people that are rioting over all of these things? You got to think about what I'm saying. Rioting, that's lawlessness. So, and there's so many scriptures that talk about it in the Bible of the last days. Anyone who practices sin also practices lawlessness. 1 John 3:4, and sin is lawlessness. And Matthew 24 and verse 12.
Right.
Because lawlessness is increased, the people's love will grow cold.
That's right.
You know, because people, they want to cast off their restraints. They don't want to, I'm going to be dead one day. The Lord doesn't come back. I'm going to die. And I want to be able to tell my children and all, and look back at them and say, well, this is not America that my father lived in. You know, and in their days, there was not a confusion. In our days, it was not a confusion between male and female. I mean, it was you either went to this bathroom or you went to this bathroom. And I'm not talking about a white bathroom or a black bathroom. I'm talking about a male and female. There's no confusion about that. The other part needed to be dealt with, and it was dealt with. But this part right here, when you don't know which gender you are, all I can tell you is real simple. Look at the plumbing. And you can see the plumbing, and if there's plumbing, whatever you're plumbing, you ain't doing right, there's something wrong. And the thing is, here's a good part of it. You know what it is? You need deliverance. There's such things as demons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or everybody needs a little help.
Right.
And some people need help in a deliverance manner. And so there's just a lot of ways that you can help people. If you haven't tried deliverance and you're trying to figure out what your plumbing is, maybe that's a way to do some things. But lawlessness, that means whatever I am, whatever I want to do, whatever I think. And you got people who are growing up in families that they're growing up and they don't take them to church. They just say, I was made to go to church, so therefore I'm going to let my children grow up and let them decide what they want to do. Do y'all realize how stupid that is?
Yeah.
Do you realize that? I can't believe you even said something like that. Because, the Bible says it is in a child's heart to go estranged from the womb. They're not going to make right decisions.
Right.
But you have to train the child up on which way he'll go, that when he gets old, he'll not depart from it. Well, they drugged me to church. Well, that was probably a good thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like, so do you think you're not worth anything, or that you're not a good person and stuff because your mom and dad took you to church? So you're not going to make your children go to church because you're just a horrific person? No, they think that they're a good person. They think that, so why wouldn't you want your children to be a good person too?
I have a couple of views on how I feel about where we stand.
Let's do it, brother. I'm going to let you have it.
Okay, lawlessness. When I look at that, one of the things I look at when we talk about even the relationship between ethnic groups and different groups and everything.
Let everybody know you're black.
Okay,
you're black.
I'm a black guy.
And I'm a white guy.
You're a white guy. Pastor George is a white guy.
But we get along pretty good, don't we?
Pretty good, I would say. We're brothers.
And you've eaten in my house.
Yeah.
You've slept in my house.
Right.
And you come over to my house and visit with us.
And eat.
And we work together for years.
That's right.
That's right.
Okay.
And we've gone out to lunch many a time.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. We like to eat, though, so.
We like each other.
Yeah. Okay. But anyway, as far as the relationships, I look at it two different ways. I know a lot of the things that have been said about the divide between, the groups and everything. But at the same time, what is our focal point? What's the end game? And what do we share? And if that is enough to bring us together, then I kind of wink my eye at all of this stuff that's going on, because I have a more different view of, in other words, the spiritual forces who are really pushing things. That's their agenda, and they are having some success of bringing about in other words, pointing out the differences that exist between us. But when you really look at it, it's kind of like the saying they always say, there is no atheist in a foxhole. And I used to think about that. I say, you know what? That sounds pretty accurate. Because when I look at an individual, let's say if they're on their deathbed or whatever, it's amazing how a great deal of them want to be a part of repentance, even if they're unsuccessful, because because of what God is doing or whatever choices they're making. They want repentance. They want to get it right because the reality has come home. This is the end game. This is the final. This is the fourth quarter. So if you have your doubts about where you stand and where you want to go, this now is the time.
That's right.
To come clean. And a lot of times that's where people do. They wait till the end of the line before they actually, because in their minds, that's what that was their thinking all along, is why God is knocking at the door and they won't answer. I got more time to do what I want to do. I'm not answering you right now. I don't want. And this could be the worst person, the atheist and all that. It kind of reminds me of 9/11. I cannot. It was unbelievable to me, the response that America had when 9/11 happened. It's almost like all of this little pedal stuff about division and all that. People got in line during that. It was like maybe for a couple of weeks. We shut all this craziness down, and we start working together. And we start doing things together, and the whole atmosphere of the country was changed by one instant. And so it's just like in anything else. Once we come to the reality, come to ourselves, shake ourselves about the realities that what we are facing as individuals is just, that's the real deal. And so I think if you want to talk about delusions, strong delusions, or people not really living in reality, whether spells been cast over the nation or whatever the case may be, I think that's where we're at as a people. A lot of people are living as though, what they're seeing is everything. And so the bottom line is that I really trust in the fact that somehow, some point, there's mercy poured out on us as a people, especially when we are willing to turn.
That's right.
To the Lord. Now, what will it take for us to really turn back? Well, 9/11 was a small version of what could happen in America, but that don't necessarily mean that we would be. How can you say it? Well, God still has some things in store for us, good things and some not so good. That's what I believe. And so as time goes on, I think some people will turn and some won't. Some people will turn to God and some won't. But I think that as they turn to God and realize this is really the end game, we're getting close to the end. And as that reality approaches and we accept the fact that that's what's going on, then I see a change could happen. A real change could happen to let us know that all of this stuff that we're going through now as a nation, and all of the rhetoric and all of the harsh rhetoric and all of the, bad things people are saying about each other and how they're warring against each other, that all of this stuff can just vanish just like that when a heart turns to the Lord. When you go from darkness to light, we've experienced it. We're Christians. We love the Lord. So we know what it's like to wake up the next morning and see how vivid everything is. The flowers smell better. Everybody looks clearer. Everybody looks beautiful. It's just the world is changed just like that.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I look for. That's kind of how I see it. I'm looking forward to that because I know it is possible. It is possible.
Do you believe that it's possible that we have riots and that we have a lawlessness in the streets to where there's such an agitation over this?
I agree, and I think we're set for that course. But God has to intervene, or just His plan, whatever His plan is for us, will come to pass. I believe that. And so, but at the same time, I don't want to close the door on the fact that even though we'll go through these times to where it can be pretty rough, where family members being killed, or we've already seen that in our country's history in the 60s. and to a large degree, we've returned.
That's true. Yeah, it seemed like we were coming out of it, and all of a sudden there was a turnaround.
Right. But I think that's more. I think it's how much control, how much mind control does the enemy have on the individual? We work with mind control and deliverance and everything, and so we do recognize the fact that there is more than just people choosing to be bad people. It's more to it that this is where we're at in the times that we're in. But the enemy is doing his thing. That's what he's doing, and we're having to try to sort it out.
People are talking about living in the land of lawlessness. That's what we're talking about, where there are no laws or anything. I'm getting ready to go out of country, and I have a passport, and my passport expires in August. So I'm having to jump through the hoops to get a passport. And a passport's not cheap. Well, it depends on wherever you're at money-wise. To me, it's something that's pretty expensive for me to get a passport.
Yeah.
And to have to do all the stuff I got to do. And the thing is, to get out of the country, I have to have a passport. I have to have a picture ID. I have to have a birth certificate. That's just getting out.
To get out.
Yeah.
I'm talking about just getting out of this place. You just can't walk out of here.
Right.
And get back in.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And so, and for those who don't know, that if your passport expires within 6 months, that when you go out of the country and it expires within that 6 months, then you ain't using that passport to get out because you don't want to get in that other country and your passport expire. Do you know what I'm talking about? They want to make sure you can get back in that. So here's what I'm trying to say. There are laws in our country that I have to follow for us to be able just to go visit and to be able to come back. And for you to think that it's all right to show up at a border, to let anybody in for any reason, and to let them in here, and you think it's all right. Here's what I'm trying to tell you: is I follow the law getting out, I will have to follow the law getting in, and I'm an American citizen.
That's right.
And here's the thing: is that for you who are coming from, and I don't know what country you're coming from, and just to think that it's all right for you to show up at the border and think that you can come in, no. There's a certain way to come into the place, and you must follow the laws that are set on the books for us to do it.
Right.
For them to do those kind of things. And if you think that that's wrong, and you think they should just have an open border and everything, when you have no laws and you have no borders, you are living in the land of lawlessness.
That's right.
And that's exactly what the scripture tells us. That will be a sign of the last days, of that when people want to cast off all restraints and let them do whatever they want to do in the last days and want to follow by any way, any laws. I mean, there was a time at one time in our country when we just kind of like, there was, even if you didn't vote for your president, you respected the office.
That's right.
Brother, I'm telling you what, nowadays and stuff like this here, if I said the things about this president that in my home growing up, my daddy would have slapped me through the wall. Do you know what I'm talking about? He said, you might not agree with him, but that's who he is. And so we have lost respect of the positions. We have lost respect of our police officers. We have lost the respect of pastors. We have lost respect of teachers. We have lost the respect of those who are over us in authority and whatever. You've lost that. All you have to do when somebody drives up, let me tell you this, I got a concealed weapon permit. And what happens is when they already told us, when you're pulled over, here's what the first thing you do. Put your hands on the steering wheel and look at them and say, "Sir, I have a concealed weapons permit and I am carrying." I mean, yeah, but I don't think you need to have to do that. I don't care whether you think you have to do that or not. It's the law.
Right.
That's right.
And you follow the laws. And if you follow the laws and what they tell you to do and everything, and show a little respect, and I'm not talking about this, there are bad people everywhere.
That's right.
On both sides of the aisle, there's bad people. But I'm telling you what you sow, you reap.
That's right.
You sow a bad attitude, you're going to get a bad attitude back. But you sow respect, you'll receive respect. And see, the thing is that we see all these signs over these schoolhouses. This is the character word for today. You know what I mean? Respect, or whatever it is, or consideration, or being considerate, or courtesy. All of these things, those are just words unless you do them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And now we're talking to people who are Christians here, y'all. And if you think living in a land of lawlessness is right, you need to come sit in the deliverance chair, and we'll get that demon out of you.
That's right.
That's right.
Because it's a demon called lawlessness.
That's right.
Are we doing all right?
I think we're doing wonderful.
Absolutely. It's just about time for us to go out there. So
Yeah, we got about 3 or 4 minutes.
I'll be the first one to jump in here and say I'd like to thank Lee Moore Pool Services for all
Yeah.
that he does for the
Thank you, Lee
sponsoring
Moore.
the show.
Thank you, Lee.
But you know, we haven't even touched what's going to happen when Putin comes. You know, there's going to be an uproar, I think, over that, over him coming, and this Russian probe and everything's been
Be
going
Russian
on.
collusion, won't it, brother?
So lawlessness, I believe you're right, Pastor. You know, when we talked about what we're going to talk about today, we talked about the Supreme Court justice, and the first thing you said, well, we should talk about lawlessness. And that's exactly the way we need to. We can look at it. Oh, what a wonderful thing! But the truth of the matter is, the other side doesn't just quit and lay down and say,
Yeah.
you know, well, I give up. They're going to probably turn to lawlessness. I would
Here's
imagine.
the article. Is Justice Anthony Kennedy announces retirement, giving Trump second Supreme Court pick. You know, and it's gonna be a time, y'all.
And if he gets 5, like Sister Sandy said the prophecy was, can you imagine what that's going to be like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it'd be lawlessness, won't it, brother? Be a
You
time.
know, things looking pretty rough, but that don't change the fact that Christians should be praying, and they should be showing love to their neighbor.
Yeah.
Amen.
That you know. So
Amen.
there you go.
Well, we
Absolutely
still got
right.
a minute or two now, guys. So don't freak out over the music here.
Okay.
Amen. And my mind went totally blank.
Okay.
I was thinking, I was thinking about that young girl. That just blew me away. That young girl with the socialism
Socialist, yeah.
got nominated in the primary to run. I don't think she's going to go very far in the general election, because I think a lot of the Republicans will step up at that time. But it's unbelievable to me that a Christian democratic country would vote for a socialist.
Yeah,
to come in there.
and when we talk about the Supreme Court justice coming on, whoever he picks, and this is the gauge that you gauge yourself by. You know, our church is a mixed church, and when we start just talking about this kind of stuff, and they started realizing, don't you really understand what these parties believe in? There's a difference in these parties, and it's not a matter of a black-white issue. It's a matter of, what does God say about abortion? And I'm going to support the party or support the person who says, no, I believe in the sanctity of life. I believe there are times when something has to be done, you know, because of the injury to the mother or something. There's some things that have to be done. But just to have outright lawlessness,
Right.
and you can have abortion on demand,
Right.
there's something wrong with that.
Right.
You're casting. That's what they did in the days of the pagans. You know, and our country has fallen into the same thing now,
Yes.
just like that.
It's pretty rough. It's kind of hard to imagine a country like it. You know, it's ones you look at. I tell people all the time whenever that abortion thing comes up, I say I had a mother who would do everything to protect her child. She would do anything for that. She would lay down her life for her child.
So
I that's the thing. That's where my mind always go back to that.
let's do it like this here, is that it is wrong, people coming to the border to separate the children from the mother.
Right.
But we separate the child from out of the mother's womb and say it's okay.
Right.
And you don't even think twice about that. That is the issue. Somebody shout amen.
Amen.
That's the issue right there. And that's what God looks at.
That's right.
And there, you're sure it's a mother. Coming in the immigration, you're not even sure if that's the mother or
Yeah,
not.
and right, exactly. And you don't have a clue.
Amen.
Anyway, did y'all enjoy today?
I enjoyed
did.
it.
I appreciate our listening audience. Tune in next week. I tell everybody, it won't be as controversial next week
Yeah.
as it is this week.
It's a pretty good half a loaf of bread.
Half a loaf of bread.
I appreciate it.
All right, everybody. I'll let y'all
God
say
bless.
goodbye. We're going to get out of here.
Well, good night or good day, CSRA.
Bye-bye.
I enjoyed today. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Henry Schaefer. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in today. We've been your hosts, Henry Schaefer and Steve Hall. The end times are here. Anything is possible. Are you ready? Don't miss the next episode of Special Edition End Time Revelation.